So you're ready to start a new project on Microsoft Azure. That's awesome, but you're immediately faced with this huge universe of services. The real challenge isn't what you can do, it's figuring out what you should do first. In this explainer, we're going to give you an architect's blueprint for picking those first absolutely crucial services with total confidence.
I mean, seriously, you open up the Azure portal and there are more than 200 services staring back at you. It's so easy to just get lost in all the options. Well, think of this as your map. We're going to cut through all that noise and zero in on the core choices that'll set your project up for success right from day one.
Our journey is going to follow 4 key steps. First, we'll lay the groundwork with governance and identity. Then, we'll pick our engine, the compute, and figure out where to put our data with storage. And finally, we'll check our work against Microsoft's gold standard, the well-architected framework. Let's get started.
Okay, before we write a single line of code, we have to organize our digital workspace. That's really all governance and identity is, setting the rules for who can do what and where they can do it. If you get this part right, you've built the bedrock for a secure, manageable cloud environment. It's that important.
So right at the very top of the hierarchy, we have management groups. The best way to think about this is like the main filing cabinet for your entire company. This is where you set the big, broad rules, like company-wide security policies, that everything else underneath is going to inherit.
Inside that big filing cabinet, you've got the drawers. These are your subscriptions. You'll probably use these to separate different environments, like development from production. They're a super critical boundary for billing and management, letting you set specific budgets and access controls for each project or team. And then, inside each drawer, you have the folders. These are your resource groups. A resource group holds all the little pieces for a single application. You know, your database, your web app, your storage, all of it. Now, here's the key takeaway. They all share a life cycle. That means you can create them, manage them, and, delete them all together in one go.
So here's how it all fits together in one clean picture. You see how everything flows downwards. Policies and permissions start at the top, at the tenant level, and they just cascade all the way down to your individual resources. This inheritance is what gives you a really powerful, consistent structure for your entire environment, pretty much automatically.
All right, this next part is absolutely critical to understand. There's a big distinction between Azure AD roles and Azure RBAC roles. Azure AD roles are for managing the identity system itself, adding users or resetting passwords. But Azure RBAC, that's role-based access control, that's all about managing who gets to access your actual cloud resources, like your VMs and storage. So, put simply, one is for managing people, the other is for managing the things those people use.
Okay, with our foundation firmly in place, it's time to choose our application's engine, the compute service. This is where your code actually runs. And for your first project, this choice really boils down to one simple but really critical trade-off.
And that trade-off is explained by this, the shared responsibility model. With infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, you manage everything from the operating system on up. But with platform as a service, or PaaS, you let Microsoft manage the platform, which means you can just focus purely on your application and your data. This leads us right to a major decision. A virtual machine gives you full control, but you're on the hook for all the patching and security. An app service, on the other hand, lets you just deploy your code and forget the OS even exists. So what's the simple rule? If you're migrating an old app, what we call a lift and shift, a VM can be easier. But for a brand new web app service is almost always going to be the faster, simpler choice. Every single application needs to store data somewhere. Now in Azure, the right choice for storage isn't about finding the one best service. It's all about matching the right service to the kind of data you're actually working with.
We can make this choice way easier by just breaking all data into 3 simple categories. If you can match your data to one of these, you're pretty much guaranteed to pick the right storage service.
First up, we have unstructured data. Just think of any file you'd save on your computer's hard drive. Images, videos, PDFs, documents. They're just blobs of data, right? They don't have a rigid internal format. And for this kind of data, the go-to service, hands down, is Azure Blob Storage. It's a massively scalable object store that's perfect for everything from tiny profile pictures to huge video files. It's simple, it's effective, and it's incredibly cheap. Next, we've got semi-structured data, which is kind of the middle ground. Think of a JSON document. It has some organization with keys and values, but it's really flexible. You can add new fields without having to change some rigid predefined schema. It's really the best of both worlds.
For this kind of data, Azure Cosmos DB is a fantastic choice. It's a globally distributed, super fast database that's just perfect for modern apps that need to handle flexible formats like JSON with incredible speed and scale.
And finally, there's structured data. This is the classic database model that we all know and love. Neat tables with predefined rows and columns where everything has to conform to a really strict schema.
And for that classic structured relational data, the industry standard on Azure is definitely Azure SQL Database. It's the fully managed, intelligent, and secure PaaS version of Microsoft's legendary SQL Server engine.
So, let's recap. We've laid our foundation, we've chosen an engine, and we've selected our storage. The blueprint is pretty much done. But now it's time for the final, crucial step, reviewing our design against Microsoft's principles to make sure it's not just functional, but truly well-architected.
This framework is built on 5 core pillars. The best way to think of them is like 5 different lenses you can use to look at your design and find ways to make it even better.
And here they are: cost, operations, performance, reliability, and security. This is basically a checklist that forces you to ask the hard questions. Is it cost-effective? Can we operate it easily? Is it going to perform under load? Is it resilient to failure? And maybe most importantly, is it secure?
You know, as Azure expert John Saville puts it, these pillars are practical tools. They help you balance all those competing factors like cost versus reliability to find the best fit for your specific needs. It's not about finding one single perfect answer, but about finding the right answer for your project.
And that's our blueprint. By setting a solid foundation, choosing the right services for the job, and then reviewing everything against those 5 pillars, you've gone from a sea of confusing options to a solid, defensible architecture. So the only question left is the one on your screen. Is your design well architected?